Keeper here again with another video. This time, it's the first video for 2024, for me at least. And I figure it's no better time than to make a video about the top 10 books I would like to get. Let me stress that, I would like to get this year. All right? So I have a little list, and I'll show the comic in a pic as I go down this list. We'll start with number 10. At number 10 for 2023. Now, let me again, 2024, excuse me. Let me just stress this again. You know, last year for 2023, I almost forgot to mention this. For 2023, yeah, I had another list, and I was able to get most on that list, but there were some that I was not able to get, and that are going to be moved to this list, that have been prioritized, so to speak, for this list for this year. But, you know, again, like with any list, and I've said this in previous years, sometimes we make up lists. These are things that we would like to get. Hopefully, sometimes we get them all. Sometimes we get a little bit. Sometimes we don't get any of them. But, you know, see what happens. All right, enough of that. So, number 10 for the 10 comic books I would like to bring into the collection, either as a brand new book or an upgrade, at number 10 is this. Amazing Spider-Man number 5. Now, this would be an upgrade. This would go in the upgrade category. Excuse me. I have an Amazing Spider-Man number 5. It's a low-grade copy. You know, I think it's maybe about a 2.5, maybe a 3.0. I would like to maybe get a 5.0 copy of this. You know, nothing too big. You know, right down the line. Mid-grade copy, and certainly a significant upgrade for my current copy. At number 9, the 9th book that I would like to get this year is this. X-Men number 4 at a 6.0. Now, as I showed in the last video, my CGC submission of my raw copy of X-Men number 4, which I purchased back in 2014, the summer of 2014, I submitted it to CGC for the reason to sell it. Now, I got a 4.5 copy, which is a pretty good copy. You know, it's teetering on that low to beginning of the mid-grade quality, right? But I would like to get a 6.0. Now, who knows if I'll be able to do that. You know, other books might take priority over this, but that is something that I'm really going to be hope to focus on at least this year. Finally upgrading that book. You know, as those of you who have been watching my channel last couple videos with my top 12 purchases of 2023 and comic book haul number 55, one of the best comic book hauls I've had, I think, in a few years. It's largely because I was finally able to upgrade my X-Men number 1. You know, I had a 3.0 and I went to a 5.0. Now, a lot of, you know, outside that book, outside the X-Men number 1, which is a 5.0, all of my Silver Age, and even beyond that, all of my X-Men books, all the big X-Men books, they're much higher. There are very few in my collection that are under a 5.0. And the X-Men number 4, 4.5 is one of them. And that's something that I would like to upgrade. But last year, I believe this was on there at number 8. It's on this year. This year's number 8. And it is Batman 232. I have a 7.5 copy, and I purchased that book around the same time I bought my X-Men number 4 in 2014, maybe about a month and a half apart. X-Men number 4 was comic book haul number 1, and Batman 232 First Ra's al Ghul was comic book haul number 3, I believe. Whatever. Well, I have a 7.5 copy, and I would probably like to get a 9. You know, why not? I don't know. I don't know if I would go for an 8.5 copy. Maybe I will. Who knows? But I would definitely like to get a higher grade on that book. It's one of my favorite Neil Adams covers from the Batman run. You know, I'm going to be upgrading, not this year necessarily, but I'm going to start to upgrade a lot of those Neil Adams Batman covers. And you could probably see in a little sneak peek in 2025, there's going to be a lot of Batman upgrades coming. As I'm starting to go through the Amazing Spider-Man, finishing the X-Men, continue to dabble with the pre-codes, you're going to start to see, for those that watch my channel, the upgrades starting to, the Batman upgrades starting to take more of a priority, or starting to, sneak in. All right, that was number 8. At number 7, this was definitely on the list of 2023. I didn't get to it. I had an opportunity to get it, but I didn't, for whatever reason, I don't remember. But hopefully this year I may be able to make it happen. So at number 7, hopefully I'll upgrade this book. Again, House of Secrets 92. This was another book that came from 2014. You might start, you're seeing a pattern here when it comes to upgrades. Starting to go back to 2014, which was like the first year, full year I was back in the hobby. And I brought in some pretty good books at that time. I brought in my original X-Men number 1, 3.0. Like I said, the X-Men 4, the Batman 232, and this one, House of Secrets 92. I currently have a 6.5. I'd like to get a 7.5 of this. I think that'd be great. Maybe if I could even pull off an 8 would be great, but we'll see. I want to try to be realistic when it comes to these grades. One of the things I made a upgrade video over a year ago, and I said in that video, and I've said it in other videos too, when you're going about the whole upgrade thing, which I love, and I think many of you love too, when you go about upgrading, you want to try to get yourself some realistic upgrade goals, and it makes the hobby more fulfilling. This was on the list last year, but this was something that I was toying around with in 2023 and never got around to it. And hopefully it will become a reality this year. We have this one. Detective Comics 400. Remember I talked about the Neil Adams? Like I said, it's starting to seep in some of those Batman upgrades. I currently have a 7.5 raw copy. I probably should get it submitted to CGC. And I'll give you my take on CGC, that whole controversy that's going on at the end of this. I don't really have that much to say. That's why I didn't dedicate a whole video to it. So now that I'm mentioning CGC, maybe I'll mention it when we're at the end of this video. But I probably should have my copy pressed and graded just to see what it comes back and see if I could get a 9.0. I had a 9.0 copy of Detective Comics 400 years ago. And again, it came from 2014. It probably, I think it was in the same hall as the Batman 232 and the House of Secrets 92. I don't remember, but it was around that time. And I had a really beautiful 9.0, and I sold it to get that Hulk 1. But it's been hard to find. It was just such a beautiful glossy cover. I would love to get my copy back and not just some other 9.0. Because I've looked at some 9.0s of that book, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a 9.0, really? But my 9.0 was really something special, and I miss it. That's one of the books I really miss, and I would like to bring back into the collection at that grade. Numbers 5 and 4 are very similar, but let's just go over number 5. I'm not going to show you a picture of it because there is no picture of it, and same thing with number 4. Number 5 is some pre-code upgrades. I could make any picture and just show a variety of different pre-code books. Doesn't necessarily mean that those are the ones I'm going to get. I really don't have too many in mind. And like I said last year, because I did something like this with the EC upgrades, the reason why I don't focus too much, let's say Mystic number 28. I have a 4.0 copy. Yeah, I'd love to get a 5.0. But the reality is, will I be able to get a 5.0 copy, or will I want to get a 5.0 copy in 2024 and bump that or bump the other ones on this list for that? I don't know. The situation would have to be right. So that's why I'm not putting anything too specific. There are some I have in my mind that I'd like to get, but like I said, I don't know if I would want to make that definite because sometimes they're hard to find, right? And again, I don't necessarily want to bump maybe, let's say, Detective Comics 400 or whatever. I'm just using that as an example over some of these others. So that's why it just, we just keep it some pre-code, most likely Atlas upgrades. And, there's not too many of them, not too many Atlas books I have that need an upgrade because a lot of them are in the 5.5 range, which I think is the nice sweet spot for those books. when they get a little higher, they get a little more expensive, and it gets to the point where I'm saying, well, I don't know if I really want to spend that much. You know what I mean? There are some that I will, and there are some in my mind that I will, but again, those some I may not be able to find. Okay, and number 4 is very similar, so I'm not going to give you a picture. It's EC upgrades. I really started upgrading a lot of ECs over the last 2 years, and 2024 shouldn't be anything any different. There's a couple I have in mind, but I don't. Like I said, like with the pre-code upgrades, I don't know if I'm going to be able to upgrade them or find them. Hopefully, I will, but we'll see what happens. But I think this year, EC, yeah, it's going to be present, but I don't think it's going to be as present as it was in the last couple of years. Whereas last year, 2023, yes, it was the year of the upgrade. It was really the years of upgrades, with 23, 22, 21. But it was really the year of pre-code Atlas for me in my collection. Although those are still going to have a place this year and years to come. I think this year I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on some superhero books. My friend Mike made a comment that, how I just sort of got my feet wet with the Mystic 28, because that's what really opened the doors for my pre-code, non-EC horror books. That really opened up the doors, and I started to creep in a little bit. Just the way when I first got my first original EC back in 2014. I didn't start collecting them as much, but they started to creep into where they became a big mainstay in my collection. Well, that was the same thing with the Mystic 28, the pre-code Atlas books. I wasn't planning to get really any more, but then within 2 years, they really started to take precedent and became a really big part of my collecting, at least in 2023. But I'm probably going to start moving a little bit more toward trying to get some more superheroes, but both pre-code EC and pre-code Atlas are pretty high on this list at numbers 4 and 5, so they're not quite dead yet. Top 3. We'll go back to pictures. Number 3. Amazing Spider-Man 3. I have a 3.0 copy, and for the life of me, and I made that unboxing video about over 5 years ago now, maybe even a little longer, when I originally got that Amazing Spider-Man 3, and I had a grade, and it came back a 3.0, and I was like, how is this a 3.0? I would have thought at least a 4.0, but I was wrong. Well, as a result, this year I would like to get a 4.0, maybe a 4.5 copy of Amazing Spider-Man 3. Will I be able to do it? I don't know. It's pretty high on my want list this year, so I might be focusing on that a little bit more than some of the others, right? That's why it's higher on the list, but we'll see what happens. Number 2. Numbers 1 and 2 were on the list last year. All right? They've now come back to this. They've fallen to this year. They are going to be prioritized. The first 3 on this list are going to be prioritized over everything else. So, at number 2, we have Strange Tales 110. Again, like I said, that was on my list last year. But I decided to go with X-Men number 1. So X-Men number 1 was the one that I put all my resources in. And that's why this one and number 1 on this list were pushed aside. But this year I definitely would like to get an upgrade to my Strange Tales 110, First Doctor Strange. I'm gunning for a 5.0. I have a 3.0. I'm gunning for a 5.0. Let's see what happens. And number 1 on the 2024 want list is Daredevil number 1. I think that might have been number 2 on the list last year. I don't remember. But I had an opportunity to get a Daredevil number 1 over the summer, but then I said to myself, well, I'm going to have to put some of my resources into this that I was hoping to put into an X-Men number 1. And I just had to weigh the two together. I said, well, what do you want? What's going to be easier to get? This 5.0, and I knew I was going to be getting a 5.0 X-Men number 1 since last summer, when it really started to become a reality. can I do both? And I said to myself, I don't know. I'd rather not. I'd rather not put myself in that situation. I have the resources to make X-Men #1 5.0, about a much higher. Well, I wanted a 4.0, a higher grade, and now a mid-grade copy of that big Marvel Silver Age book. I'd rather get that one than Daredevil #1. So I put Daredevil #1 off to this year, where that is the main priority this year. Whereas X-Men #1, which was #1 on the list last year, Daredevil #1 will be the #1 on this year's list. And hopefully it will be a reality. We'll see what happens. But that's my top 10 want list for 2024. Now, before I go, I know I said in the middle of this video I was going to do a little my take on that whole CGC thing that's been going on. I know the comic book community, both on YouTube and Instagram, have been talking about it as of late. This whole, do you trust CGC and all that stuff? All that stuff. Yes, I still trust CGC. I know people will say, well, you're just a CGC fanboy. No, it's not that. CGC, I think, is a really good company. Like any good company, or like any company, made its fair share of mistakes, and sometimes these mistakes are indeed costly. And I sure as hell wouldn't want to be the guy that had this mistake. I get that. But I still think it's a very good company, and I will continue to use them to grade my books. And I've already decided on that. But I saw Alex, the comic book hoarder, he made a video within, I guess, the last week. I don't remember when I was watching it. He made a whole video on this CGC debacle. Well, the recap of the debacle is some guy was switching out, I guess, Incredible Hulk 181s in the slabs and getting them reslabbed. He was switching out Incredible Hulk 181s that had the Marvel stamp removed or something like that. It's something to that effect, where there was obviously a scam going on. And he was able to do this. And I know this was broadcast and shown on a bunch of comic book channels, YouTube comic book channels. Now, getting back to the Alex video, I feel the same way he does. I still trust CGC. I guess you do what you want to do. But he brought in some figures, math figures, percentages and all that stuff. This is really a very small percentage of books that have been swapped out. Out of all the books that are graded every year, year in and year out, the chances of you getting a book that has been tampered with is very, very small. Now, I know there are people out there that hate CGC. There are just people out there that just like to hate on things. We've all been accused of that. I've been accused of that and all that stuff. But look, you do what you want to do. If you don't want to trust CGC, then don't trust them. My point is that you should look at it with the sense of logic. If the reason why you don't want to get anything graded is because you're afraid that you're going to buy something that you're going to fall victim to this scam, I think it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. Logically speaking, when it comes to the numbers. Anything's possible, but all I'm saying is I'm moving forward with no issues, and you really shouldn't freak out about these things. And sometimes communities like this one and many others tend to freak out over everything. I remember this being one of them, and what was that other one? That was a few years ago at the New York Comic Con. There was someone, I guess, from CGC or something like that, that was going through a Superman #1, and everybody was freaking out about that. Oh my God, I can't believe the way this guy was flipping through the book. Is he flipping through my books this way? I think everyone just needs to take a step back. I don't think it's anything too bad. But, like with all companies, these sort of things happen. And I think they responded very well, that they will reimburse the people that have been affected by this. What else can they do? Well, maybe tighten a little bit when it comes to their inspection. Okay, people could argue that, maybe they should have done a better job with that. Sure. Absolutely. But it really hasn't done anything for me when it comes to lack of trust with CGC. So, And that's it. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I wonder what books that you're going to be hunting for this year. You could leave a couple of them in the comments. If you're hunting books, good luck with that. Other than that, everybody, have a great day and talk to you soon.